Some things we hear so many times that we just stop questioning them. But in this video, I'm gonna take a closer look. From a substance harder than diamonds to the reason why you should always eat the skin of the fruit, I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 facts you've heard, but aren't always true. 25. GMOs are dangerous. You've probably heard the letters GMO before, and it's rarely in good context. Genetically modified organism sounds artificial, dystopian, and most of all, unhealthy. But is that really true? GMOs can be applied to animals, plants, or other organisms to change their DNA. It's kind of a genetic engineering. This kind of engineering is much quicker than using traditional breeding techniques like on dogs, which can take generations. GMO foods have been available in the US for more than 3 decades, but many people are still cautious. The science tells us there's no link to food allergies, obesity, cancer, or any other disease. Animal studies have found no effects on future generations either, so as far as we should be concerned, they're safe. 24. You can tell if a food is safe by looking at it. The sniff test might work to decide whether or not you can wear a shirt for an extra day, but when it comes to food, it's not always reliable. You might think that you can usually smell or see when a food isn't safe anymore, but that's not true. Inside any food product, enzymes and microbes are growing, especially in response to heat and oxygen, which is why it's best to keep leftovers cool and sealed. Many signs, like mold, a bad smell, or discoloration, are obvious, but it's usually best to follow a use-by date and avoid reheating more than once because harmful bacteria could be hiding inside. 23. Dairy Queen soft serve is ice cream. The most iconic item on the menu at Dairy Queen is the Blizzard, a creamy treat so thick that if it doesn't pass the flip test, you get it for free. It's been a hit since it debuted on the menu in 1985, selling millions every year. But if you thought what you were eating all those years was ice cream, well, you're sorely mistaken. Dairy Queen admits that what they sell doesn't meet the standards of ice cream. That's because to be considered ice cream in the US, 10% or more of a product has to be either milk fat or butter fat. That's why the Blizzard is marketed as soft serve, a term that Dairy Queen claims to have invented. Another claim comes from Margaret Thatcher, the former Prime Minister of the UK. How's that for a random fact? 22. Alcohol helps you sleep. Ever notice that after a few drinks, it's easier to fall asleep? Well, that's technically true because it acts as a sedative, but it's not actually good for your sleep. Allow me to explain. After the sedative qualities subside and you've drifted off to sleep, alcohol interrupts your sleep cycle, meaning more rapid eye movement and changes in your sleep architecture. It can mean waking up during the night and earlier in the morning. Plus, it can worsen sleep apnea, which is where breathing stops and starts throughout the night. All in all, alcohol might help you fall asleep, but it's definitely not good for you. 21. Split ends can be cured by shampoo. There are hundreds of products on the market promising to protect against split ends, but there is no single cause of them. Split ends can be more than a sign of dryness or lack of hygiene, and despite any guarantee, no product available has been proven to effectively repair them. If you let them go too long, then they have split ends that can stop hair growing properly. So the best thing to do is to make peace with losing at least a few millimeters and have your hair trimmed. 20. Microwaves destroy all the healthy elements in food. This one is not only untrue, but the reality is the opposite. Microwaves work through invisible electromagnetic waves, vibrating water, and other tiny particles inside food to heat them up. For decades, some people have argued that microwaves are bad for our health. But unless you're putting your body inside one, that's simply not true. In many cases, using a microwave can be better for your health. That's because the short heating time is able to preserve certain nutrients that are stripped away and lost through a longer cooking process. So take that, anti-microwavers. 19. A defibrillator cannot restart a heart. We've all seen in the movies the dramatic moment when a doctor jolts a patient back to life. Usually they can't find the pulse and use a defibrillator, rubbing 2 of them together. And before doing it, they always yell, "Clear!" Because of that, the impression most people have is that these defibrillator devices are restarting the heart. Unfortunately, that's not really the case. Defibrillators are only made to shock a heart back into a normal rhythm. Once a heart has come to a stop, the way to try and get it to restart is through CPR or an injection of adrenaline. 18. Your sight deteriorates if you read in the dark. Most phones and laptops these days have a night mode to adjust your eyes and strain them less. The idea behind this one is actually an old one. that reading in the dark damages your eyes. Experts now say that this isn't really the case. It might cause some very short-term irritation like dry eyes, but there's no evidence of long-term damage. In fact, some believe that it makes your eyes even stronger, like training a muscle. I guess all of our parents were just wrong. 17. Diamonds are the hardest substance. The use of diamonds as engagement rings goes back centuries, and the idea, apart from clever marketing beginning in the late 30s, is that diamonds are exceptionally strong, the strongest on Earth. They're used in an industrial setting too, for grinding, drilling, and cutting, but it turns out they aren't actually the hardest substance anymore. That claim to fame goes to ultra-hard nanotwined cubic boron nitride. It registers with a Vickers hardness score of 108, which is 8 points higher than synthetic diamonds. While it may soon be used in manufacturing, I can't imagine proposing to someone with ultra-hard nanoweight cubic boron nitride. It doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? Get it? 16. Geisha are prostitutes. Beautifully dressed in traditional garments and adorned with delicate makeup, the geisha are one of the most recognizable parts of Japanese culture. The geisha system developed in Japan from the 17th century, and, contrary to popular belief, it has nothing to do with prostitution. It was one of the few career paths open to women, and the best geishas could earn a small fortune. Geisha houses were set up to train young women, often for years, until they were ready. Numbers have dwindled over the past 2 centuries as the ancient have struggled to adapt to the modern world, but the community still survives. 15. Bats swoop to tangle in your hair. The idea of a bat swooping down and getting tangled in your hair is the stuff of nightmares. And for years, a myth has circulated that bats seek out our hair while looking for a place to nest. Relax though, it is completely false. Bats don't even build nests. They prefer to hang upside down to sleep, vampire style. And they have a pretty great sense of direction with echolocation, so it's unlikely that they're getting lost. Either a few anecdotes have been blown way out of proportion, or bats are waging some kind of war against our hair. 14. The number of spots on ladybug tells its age. The ladybug is one of the few insects most people regard as beautiful. That all comes down to its wings, which usually coat a red background with black spots. They aren't like rings on a tree though, so you can't tell a ladybug's age by counting the spots, but they do have a very important purpose. The dots are used to scare away potential predators. The use of black and red is something called aposematic coloration, telling animals they might be poisonous. 13. The Vomitorium was a place to throw up. The Romans were famous for their love of food, wine, and gluttony, which is probably what led to the myth that there was a special room for them to vomit in so they could keep eating. The idea got more traction after a similar concept appeared in the Hunger Games book series. However, that's far from the truth. In reality, a vomitorium is simply a part of a building, the first room of an amphitheater or stadium. But the word vomit does have the same meaning in Latin, so where did this idea come from? It's because the vomitorium is a place where crowds dissipate and spew forth back onto the street. I'm not really sure who was given the naming job on that day, but they must not have been feeling very well. 12. Poor countries stay poor. You've definitely heard this before. The rich get richer, while the poor stay poorer. While that can be helpful to understand some relations of power, it's not always true, especially when it comes to countries. One of the best examples is Singapore, which was transformed from a tiny place of swampy marshlands into a tech and business hub with a GDP of almost $500 billion. It also ranks as one of the world's safest and most comfortable places to live. Singapore has proven that smart governing can change a country's fortunes in the space of half a century. Now just imagine what we could do with some good governance. 11. Sushi means raw fish. Don't go to Japan and order sushi expecting to only get raw fish. Yes, it often includes fish, but that's not what it means. Translated, the word means sour rice because it's made with rice vinegar. Then fish is usually placed on top. Sashimi, on the other hand, means pierce because it's fish that's been sliced very thin and served without rice. Both dishes are basically raw fish dishes, but now you know the difference. 10. The capital of Australia is Sydney. What comes to mind when I say Australia? Sydney Harbour Bridge? How about the Sydney Opera House? Well, it's no wonder why most people think Sydney is the capital of Australia, but it's not. That title belongs to Canberra, which is about 150 miles south of Sydney and home to just over 500,000 people. It's also about 280 miles north of Melbourne, which is why it was chosen as the capital in the first place. When leaders couldn't decide between Melbourne and Sydney, they decided for Canberra, more or less in the middle of the two. Now that's a compromise. 9. all rocks are the same. Not all rocks are created equal. There are 3 big categories: sedimentary, metamorphic, and igneous, ranging from soft to hard. Sedimentary is the kind you might find in a desert, made of things like sand and pebbles. Metamorphic is much darker and often appears shiny. Finally, igneous rocks are the kind that have been blasted with intense heat from underneath and have small holes in them from where air escaped. When you hold one of these, you are directly feeling the effects of thousands of degrees of heat. 8. Pilgrims wore black buckles and big hats. If you go to your nearest costume store and tell them you want to dress up as a pilgrim, they'll probably give you a big black hat, belt buckle, and a white collar. Not only does this look like you might be on your way to a funeral, but it's completely inaccurate. The clothing of real pilgrims was much more colorful. Blue, yellow, orange, a red shirt or pants were also common. They wore latched shoes, stockings, breeches, and an overshirt called a doublet, which was all topped off by a wide-brimmed hat. 7. The wind can burn your skin. When the wind gets strong enough, it can give us the sensation of burning on the face, something usually called windburn. That feeling isn't really coming from the wind though. It's caused by run-of-the-mill ultraviolet radiation, the same way you get sunburned. If the sky is cloudy outside, the UV exposure might still be high, especially if you're at higher altitudes or around snow. So never assume that you're safe from the sun on a windy day. 6. Nuts, popcorn, or seeds increase the risk of diverticulitis. Diverticulosis is a digestive condition that impacts the large intestine, causing cramps, pain, and interrupting bowel movements. It's pretty common for older people, reported in 1 in 10 people of those over the age of 45. Often, patients are told to cut out nuts, corn, seeds, and popcorn from their diet because they could get stuck. It turns out this isn't supported by evidence, with some experts suggesting to increase the consumption of these things as they can be anti-inflammatory foods. 5. Applying ice after a burn. This next one is serious medical advice that we should all know, but it somehow feels counterintuitive. After burning yourself, your instinct is to usually put something cold on it, like water or ice. Water is a good start, but ice is absolutely the wrong thing to use. Ice, or even extremely cold water, can lead to an even more serious injury. It damages the tissue, your nerves, and can give you frostnip, one step short of frostbite. The right thing to do is rinse the burn, gently put on some moisturizer like aloe vera, and protect it with a bandage. 4. You should always peel fruit and vegetables. This one seems like common sense. I mean, who'd eat an orange with the skin on? Shockingly, this part of the fruit is full of twice the dose of vitamin C on the inside, plus calcium, magnesium, and a whole other bunch of nutrients. Bananas, zucchini, kiwi fruit, and peaches are all the same. For potatoes, the skin has potassium, iron, vitamin B, and tons of fiber. Still, I'm not sure I'm gonna start eating the skin of an orange anytime soon, or banana for that matter. Maybe just let's start with the zest. 3. Panic attacks can be fatal. Anyone who's suffered from a panic attack knows that it can feel like the end of the world. Rest assured though, as tough as it can be to get through, there's no chance of actually dying. A panic attack is a sudden, heightened state of anxiety, fear, and paranoia. Usually they're accompanied by symptoms like sweating, chest pain, and nausea. That chest pain still could be serious, so if you ever worry, it's best to get medical attention just in case. But in the case that it's a panic attack, the best thing to do is try to breathe slowly and calm yourself down. They usually last a maximum of 30 minutes, which might feel like a lifetime. 2. Eating disorders only affect women. An eating disorder is when someone has an extremely unhealthy relationship with food, usually because they become hyper-focused on the way they look or how much they weigh. These can develop in childhood or later in life, and there still isn't a complete understanding of what causes them. But it's certainly not only women who suffer from them. Women might be up to 3 times more likely to develop an eating disorder than men, but tragically, men are much more likely to lose their lives from it. 1. You need to dominate a dog or be dominated. Dogs are like little children. When they act out, everyone blames the owners and usually thinks they should be stricter or more dominant to pull the pet in line. However, that approach doesn't always work in the real world. All it does is make the dog scared and anxious and more likely to act badly. Even worse, the dog becomes more unpredictable. So it's the wrong information to follow. So what's a fact you grew up with only to later learn that it was false? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, smash that notification bell. That's what the kids are saying these days, right? And check out our social medias, including my personal ones. Links in that description below. And if you liked this video and smash that notification bell, you'll love the one we did a little bit ago. 25 things everyone knows that are false. So smash this thing, just smash everything. Everyone just start smashing. Smash the notification bell, smash the subscribe, smash this. I don't know what got over me, I'm so sorry. Just click here, check that out. Mike Smash.